As most of you know, Susan and I and Susan's partner Lloyd lived together in the little crooked house behind the fellowship. And this was a really exciting week for us because Susan was preparing for her talk all week. And she would come into the fellowship and study about Hildegard, then Bingen, which I never learned how to say right, and she would come in and say, "Oh, look what I found out. These are things that we learned about that we could apply today." And she was ahead of her time. And every time she would come in, she'd have another exciting thing to tell us. So you're in for a real treat today, hearing Susan. Susan is our office manager for the fellowship, if you didn't know that. She is an ILC guide, and she, along with Lloyd and I, lead a class of young people each week. Susan also facilitates a circle of women's group, which is going to begin again after COVID once a month, and we hope that all of the women here will come, and we'll tell you more about that. Susan also is an accomplished musician. At 17, she was accepted as a professional violinist for the Virginia Symphony. She chose to go to university instead, and after she came back, she joined the Virginia Symphony and played violin there for a number of years. She's a wonderful friend and a mentor and a beautiful person, and if you don't know her, please take some time to talk with her and get to know her better. But you're in for a treat to hear about Hildegard today, so I introduce you to my dear friend, Susan Thomas.
Good morning. It's good to be here today. There's a beautiful feeling of peace in this room, a beautiful feeling of love. And I will be sharing with you some things, obviously, about Hildegard von Bingen. But before I really get started, I felt this today when I was sitting over here. I think if she were here today and standing right here, she would look out at all of you and she would want to remind you of just how sacred you are. No matter what you've been told in the past, no matter what you've told yourself, no matter when you stuck your foot in your mouth or did something you are not proud of, but you are sparks of God. You're here to do God's work and make heaven on earth. And there's nothing you can't accomplish, and your prayers are powerful. I feel like she would be telling all of you that. I was a very fortunate person to find out about Hildegard von Bingen from a friend several years ago. And in fact, several years ago, I did do a little talk here about her, and I even made her 900-year-old cookie recipe, and we used the cookies for communion that particular Sunday. Yeah, they're quite tasty. I might have to do that sometime and put them out after church. And I even have copies of the recipe if anyone wants it later. We're going to start with a little history of her so you know a little bit about Hildegard and where she lived and when she lived and what her circumstances were. And then we're going to get into some of her gifts, some things about her writings and her visions and her art, but especially today, her music. Hildegard von Bingen lived from 1098 until 1179 AD. She was given into the care of a nun named Jutta von Sponheim when she was only 8 years old. In the day that she lived in, it was not uncommon for wealthy families who had 10 children to do the tithe of the 10th child to the convent or the monastery. There is some speculation that she was also sent there because she was clairvoyant, clairaudient, had visions from the age of 6. So one reason or another, she ended up there. And there were some good things about the beginning of it, and not good things, except it caused her to realize what really is. Jutta treated her well, But Judah had a very different view of God and of mankind than Hildegard did, even at that young age. Judah felt we're all terrible sinners, born in original sin, and we're all going to hell unless we do the following huge list of rules that you can hardly follow, and that type of thing. She was not nice to her own self. She didn't take care of herself. She literally starved herself and died. And I'm not crying, but my eyes watering because of an allergy to violin rosin. I forgot I have. And I've been playing a lot, and it's in the air. Anyway, so this is what Judah was like. And Judah passed away. And when she did, the other nuns that were at the convent wanted Hildegard to be their leader. And through a series of what you have to do, jumping through hoops and whatever, she did become the leader of that particular place. She changed everything. The nuns could wear their hair down, have flowers in their hair, and wear very nice cloth. And she undid the walled-in rooms that most of them lived in and never saw the outside world. They went outside. They went into the community. They learned about herbs and flowers and gardening. And they were able to work in the infirmary and in the sanctuary. Now, bear in mind, Hildegard lived at a time, and it's still like that in some places now, but where women didn't speak at the church. And they certainly didn't admit they had visions. You could be considered heresy, and it was dangerous. So it's quite a miracle that she got surrounded by just the right souls so that she could do the gift that she had. She wasn't even sure about her own visions. I remember that story of Paul Solomon where he wasn't sure, where's this coming from? So she kind of had her own self-doubts at one point, and also wasn't sure if it was safe to speak what she was hearing and seeing. But she had a very good friend named Volmar, who was a monk, a Benedictine monk, who saw the authenticity of her visions that she had. And he encouraged her to keep opening to the visions and to share them with people. And he was her scribe, one of her people that wrote down what she said, what she experienced. Her visions also led her to the music she created and to her artwork. At the time that she entered the convent, typically wealthy people would send their daughters, and they had to pay a dowry to the church. So if poor women wanted to be in the convent, they would serve as the servants and work for the others. But anyway, Hildegard just dropped all of that stuff, and everybody was equal and the same, and she got them all singing. And she wrote a lot of poetry and put it to song for her nuns to sing. And it was a part of their life every day. There was a point where there were some jealous priests, we've never heard of that, have we, throughout history, who thought it was wrong for her to speak to people and wrong to do her visions. So he decided, I'm going to punish this place. No more music, no more singing. And this went on for weeks. But finally, she went to a different person, who, in whatever the hierarchy of the church was at the time, who saw the beauty of the music they were doing and the visions. And so all of that changed and it was restored. And so she's just amazing. She wouldn't just sit there and do nothing, even taking risks. Her visions were even accepted by the Pope of the time. He thought they were authentic. He called her the Sibyl of the Rhine. She did live in what is now Germany, and that's where her name comes from, Bingen. And they have a statue of her there to this day. And they also have a medical center named after her because of her work with herbs and prevention and lifestyle and food as medicine and so forth. And we'll hear a little bit more about some of these as we go along. want to just say a few words about her art. One could just spend weeks studying the art, and you artists out there know that. It's amazing, these things. How do they survive 900 years? You know, like, can you find everything that's in your closet or your books? I mean, 900 years, this stuff was hermetically sealed and protected, obviously, because we have copies, lots of her, we have prints available of lots of her art. She did a lot of mandalas, did a lot of circular things, and did a lot of symbolism within her art and spiritual things. And she used the vision she had to help create some of her art. And she thought of it as a way of showing man's communion with the cosmos. And in some of her art, you can see astrological symbols. And she would divide some of her circles into quadrants. So you had earth, air, fire, and water. And she liked to call upon that, the directions, like many of our other cultures, including Native American Indians, often do that. So she really, let's just say, the woman tuned in. She really tuned into that stream of consciousness. Her soul agreed to that, and boy, did it happen. So I'm going to just, and also, she often did her poems to fit with her art. And I have just put a few pictures around that you can look closer at if you want to later. And also you can find a lot of this online to look at and study more to the nth degree about each of these areas. And many books now have been also put out about Hildegard. But I'm going to read this one thing that somebody said about her art. Central to her mandala paintings is the understanding of a cosmic equilibrium and a reverence for all of life. Her concept of viriditas, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, the greening, was a precursor to our environmental and ecology movement. It was very important to her that we take care of the earth. She described this greening power as the agent of God, a divine vitality that was the animating life force within all creation. This greenness was the very expression of divine power on earth. And since this extraordinary phenomenon called life could only be created by God, Hildegard believed all lives equally carry this divine energy. And in her own words, in a small poem, she says, "O fire of the Holy Spirit, life of the life of every creature, holy are you in giving life to forms. O boldest path penetrating into all places in the heights on the whole earth." Very powerful. Anytime I read her, anything about her that she says, it's a really felt, palpable thing for me, and perhaps it is for you as well. So let's think a minute about what was Hildegard best known for. People have asked that, and they asked that of me. Well, along with her impressive body of work and ethereal musical compositions, she's best known for that spirit that we talked about of greenness, the greening energy of God, the cosmic force infusing the natural world. And what did she believe in? And what did she teach us about, how to live life? Well, she taught us to live in moderation. She had this firm belief that if you had a healthy routine and a gentle self-discipline and discretion, you would live in balance and bring the union of the divine and man into order. And she taught us that creativity is both an expression and a form of prayer, that every thought you have is indeed a form of prayer. So during her 81 years, which is also remarkable for the time she lived in and her opening her mouth in the wrong places, she wrote 9 books addressing theology, medicine, science, and diet. She's credited with writing the very first book on gynecology. She wrote 70 poems, chants, and songs, and many consider this play that she wrote, which is the play of the virtues, was a distant ancestor of opera. And bear in mind, where she lived, she mostly heard Gregorian chants, plain chants, but she also was exposed to the troubadours of the time and to her own inner voice and visions of the use of sound. So she's remembered greatly in Germany as the originator of alternative medicine. She promoted the prevention of disease and illness by means of a healthy lifestyle, and she used the curative powers of natural objects for healing. She used herbs, she used crystals, she used touch, prayer healing, all of those things. And she felt that we've only limited ourselves because we thought we had to have a permission slip from somewhere, and nobody ever said it was okay to do these things. Well, she tried to get the word out. Indeed, not only is it okay and natural, there would be something very wrong if we didn't do it. Let's get to it. Let's learn how to do all these wonderful things. So homeopathy credits her with a lot, as well as the herbalist today. Along with the later person that you might not know about, we'll talk about him another Sunday, Charlemagne. There's a lot that people don't know about him, but he was a major herbalist always. And some have said she can serve as an anchor in the past and a signpost for the future. So many things have been said about her. Before we do a little experiment with all of us and have some music, I'm just going to read a couple of her poems to you. Now, bear in mind, she did prose and she did poems, and in her language, the German of the time, it rhymed. It's not going to rhyme in English, but the translation tells what she was saying. So she said, this poem is called God's Word is in All Creation. No creature has meaning without the word and love of God. God's word, the sound, is in all creation, visible and invisible. The word is living, being, spirit, all verdant, all creativity. This word flashes out in every creature. This is how the spirit is in the flesh. The word is indivisible from God. And her ever-popular The Greening Energy is in a small poem about a branch of a tree. And she loved trees. And she has trees in some of her artwork, both symbol and living creatures that they are. So this one's called O Greening Branch. O greening branch, you stand in your nobility like the rising dawn. Rejoice now and exalt, and deign to free the fools we are from our long slavery to evil, and hold out your hand to raise us up. And then she has a little poem that's Song to the Creator. You, all accomplishing, word of the Father, are the light of primordial daybreak over the spheres. You, the foreknowing mind of divinity, foresaw all your works as you willed them, your presence hidden in the heart of your power like a wheel around the world whose circling never began and never ends. I'm going to move a couple of things, and then we'll do what we're doing next. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what she said about music, and then I'm going to play on the violin a piece that Hildegard composed. It was they didn't write things as clearly then, music notation, as they do now, but we have this, looks like chicken scratch stuff that people took pictures of. Again, how did it survive 900 years, But, and some of it's on parchment and different sorts of paper, and some of it's unfinished. And so I found this one, I looked at many, and I found this one called Antiphon Caritas Habuntat, and it's about the origin of fire, meaning the element and the spark of life. You could equate it to the first chakra, the red terrace, where we're going to have change, we're going to have life, okay? And since I'm on that subject, while I studied this, I was reminded, as I read about what Hildegard said about all that, about my daughter Jennifer when she was about 5 years old. She had been very quiet, and so as parents, I better check and see what she's up to. So I was in the family room, and I just went to see if she needed anything, see what she was doing, and she was in her room, but she came running out, all excited, and she said, Mommy, I figured it all out. And I said, what did you figure out? She said, all of this. All of this. I said, what did you figure out? She said, well, God is both male and female. God kissed God's self. And she didn't use the word polarity, but came together. And it all got started and expressed. And she said that a man and a woman at age 30 came to the earth and started all the rest of it. And then she just went on happily playing. But I just thought, from the mouths of babes and also older people, all people, but she reminds me a lot, her pattern of Hildegard. So that came to my mind as I read what Hildegard was saying about all these things. And, back when she was around, God was supposed to be an old man in the sky with a beard, but Hildegard saw differently, and my daughter clearly saw differently. At almost 5 years old, yep. Some of the musicologists who have studied Hildegard's music say that although she was influenced by the Gregorian chants, much like her other work, her creative power imparted her music with a unique expressiveness that moved her music beyond some of these formal limitations of her time. Her tonal range within the music greatly expanded to include higher notes. And she talked to who became Saint Bernard. She talked to him about her music, and she confessed, "The vision fascinates my whole being. I do not see with the eyes of the body, but it appears to me in the spirit of the mysteries. I recognize the deeper meanings of what is expounded on in the Psalter, the Gospels, and other books, and things that have been shown to me in vision. The vision burns like a flame in my breast and in my soul and teaches me to understand and helps me to hear the music in my heart and my soul and in my mind." She describes herself that her visions and her music came through an inner voice, an inner ear. She based her means of expression on the Gregorian chant, but she didn't stay there. Whatever she heard in vision, she improvised and added. She described a third state of consciousness, the first two being sleep or wake. We're either awake or we're asleep at night. She said there's a third place that's in between, that's trance-like. And that opened her to the metaphysical. and to relaxation techniques, and to music. And she believed that music changed people's brains and caused all parts to work together. And it calmed people and it healed people. So she often had a hypnotic sort of quality, to the relaxing music that she did. And scientists today know, and they even do tests where they see that it synchronizes the brain hemisphere, giving whole brain thinking. So, with no further ado, we're going to have a little moment here, a musical moment. First of all, I'd like to invite all of you to turn to someone near you. And before I do this, and this is the kind of thing Hildegard did. And, she referred to the greening energy. That's the creative energy, and the divine energy. And say to somebody near you, the greening energy in me greets the greening energy in you. So go ahead and take a moment, and that way you can wiggle and move around and say it. And I know the dog liked that. I saw you do that. The puppy got it too. It's not the same green that we say green with envy. We use colors in so many ways, right? But it's the green of, the trees and the creation and the green terrace. Didn't that feel good? That's kind of like we can do a lot of positive things with each other that way. And in Hawaii, they do that with aloha with each other. It's that same exchange in a different language with a different explanation. But I notice when we do things like that, people smile, and it's sort of automatic, a joy wells up. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to get the violin and make sure it's still in tune, and I'm going to play this for you. And if you prefer to just close your eyes and relax with it, or relax either way, but if you want to close your eyes and kind of go somewhere with it, you can. So that was just one of her many pieces. I actually had to finish it, so I did my best to tune in, and because it wasn't finished, But, we get into the stream of consciousness. Musicians do that together when they're both standing there, and also when maybe one's on the other side and one's here. But that was the origin of the spark in you. She called that, of the fire. It started moving, the sound. So now I'm going to, before I do a little closing statement of hers, I'm just going to tune in to who's in this room now and do what she did, and allow Spirit just to give me a little improv on the violin for the soul and the spirits of all the people that are here right now. So your thoughts coming this way and your energy coming this way are going to help me find the notes you need at this time. You guys did that. All right, here we go. Let's close with two statements that Hildegard said. Dare to declare who you are. It is not far from the shores of silence to the boundaries of speech. The path is not long, but the way is deep. You must not only walk there, you must be prepared to leap. Every creature is a glittering, glistening mirror of divinity. So be it. And thank you, Hildegard.